Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hello, Fun and Games fans. This is Mario Rivera, or as I'm pretty much known on the internet as that Mario Rivera. I am, of course, a podcaster, video editor, video producer extraordinaire. I used to work for websites like DualShockers, TechRaptor. I recently had a group, of course, Point in Progress, that I was a massive co-founder and part of. I've now since gone on and done my own thing, if you will, which I am aptly calling Only Special Features. Only Special Features will be featured, of course, on YouTube, youtube.com/Only Special Features. What are you going to see there? You're pretty much going to see things that I find interesting. Mostly, though, I'm planning to do a lot of the similar work that I was doing at a TechRaptor or DualShockers, which is more special content, right? Getting to know people through interviews, getting to create content that I think is interesting, whether it's a small essay about, the current politics and the Metal Gear franchise, to why are games so scary now compared to when I was a kid, or vice versa. It's really a multitude of things that I'm looking forward to developing as it goes along. So please come for the ride for that. But we're not here for that, right? We're here because we're going to talk about my little side quest, right? We're going to talk about a little game that I'm going to admit to everyone right now. I am growing up was never a true Silent Hill fan. I was a Resident Evil kid. I am the kid that would rather be scared by dogs jumping through windows and naming things liquors and fighting Nemesis. Like, that was my jam. The Silent Hill franchise has always been a series. By the way, you might hear a little cat whispering in the background because he's saying, what's wrong with you? You should have liked Silent Hill a long time ago. Silent Hill originally for me, and of course we're talking about Silent Hill 2 specifically in this episode, specifically the remake. I know there are people out there that have opinions on Silent Hill 2 remake, including some people that are fans of the original. We'll get there. But let me tell you why I'm not the perfect person to talk about Silent Hill 2 in just a second here. But Silent Hill, at least the franchise, to me, whenever I've seen it, and I've seen it both in the video game form, and I've seen it obviously in the movie form, as you will, and the grossness of the world never appealed to me. It just looked dingy and dark and spooky, and I didn't want to be in basements and all that. It looks like I'd rather be in a mansion or an abandoned police station, or dealing with people in a village. So like that was always my jam. It wasn't really until this last couple of years where I've started to soften up and open up to new experiences, new ideas, and it really came ahead when Silent Hill 2. The remake was sort of announced about a year or two ago. And I was like, okay, I've heard of these games. I don't know much of them. I, of course, like I said, not super a fan originally. However, I'm going to give this one a shot. Maybe this will be something that interests me. And I know that some of the footage that came out, people were upset about it and blah, blah, blah. Well, needless to say, I gave it a shot. I gave Silent Hill 2, the remake, a shot, and it blew me away with what I believe is a wonderful story told through subtlety and context of the world building, and less about the actual story that they're telling you. And what I mean by that is there's so much texture just around the edges of the game itself and of the world building and of the dialogue that is while you're playing this game, and even the gameplay in a lot of instances. Silent Hill 2, I think, is pretty much a masterpiece. And again, I'm saying specifically the remake. I know that I've not played the original, which I'm actually going back to. So, because of my Silent Hill 2 excursion into the world of Silent Hill, I'm saying Silent Hill a lot, but it's because this is important. Silent Hill 1, I've also now finished. I'm in the middle of playing 3 right now. So, I'm making my way through, guys. So, I'm making my way through the canon of Silent Hill. So, don't you worry. I'll be there eventually. And eventually, I'll play through the first 2, the original 2. But the reason why I want to talk about the remake is because I do want to just say that this is a worthy game to play if you are someone joining into the series as someone who, like I said, was either too scared or just in vibe with the original sort of aesthetic of Silent Hill. This game changed my mind in a lot of ways, and a lot of it was noticing the subtle storytelling. And I didn't know what the story of 2 was. I didn't even know. I thought it would be tied to 1. Apparently, it's very much considered its own story, and that what was appealing to me. It was the fact that I could play this and not have to have the baggage of 1 and 3. But I'm glad I'm now playing those. But anyways, so Silent Hill 2, you play as James Sutherland, who returns to Silent Hill after a couple years before his wife had passed away. He receives this note saying that she's in Silent Hill, and so he's sort of like on his way to investigate. It's very much dream logic and very much like ethereal. And for the people who know me and people who followed me for years, they know me primarily for loving one major thing. And that is, of course, the television series Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks, of course, if you don't know, David Lynch, Mark Frost did this in the late 80s, early 90s. It's a little television series. Changed my life watching it a couple of years ago. It's my favorite series of all time. David Lynch films in general, but I'm specifically Twin Peaks, gives that small town feeling, but there's always this sort of like, it doesn't matter if it makes sense as long as it feels like it makes sense, and the story will unfold from there. And that's what I love about Twin Peaks, and that's what I kind of love about Silent Hill, is that how much it gives me those vibes. Silent Hill as a place feels very lived in when you play this game. You explore the streets, you explore the different avenues and the local bar, the apartment building, and that's really what I think is a huge core component of Silent Hill, specifically Silent Hill 2, is you are visiting all these things that are very familial and very much places that you've experienced, but seeing the decay, seeing that sort of like facade burn away. And that's very much also indicative to the storytelling of this game. You, like I said, you play as this husband who's distraught, but the more you explore the story and the more kind of things chip away and sort of like decaying off, you're starting to get a little questionable about who this person is and who they are as a character with other people that they interact with. And that's what I think is such a wonderful piece of storytelling and masterful things that they do in this game. And a lot of that is both told to you explicitly, but mostly by context of different things. So like, for instance, not to spoil too much, because I actually would love for people to play this game, and I'm sure people are going to spoil things, and I don't know if I even should, but there are certain creatures that you come across, and at first they feel threatening because they're, otherworldly and kind of bizarre. And they're sort of these globs with legs, like they're just sort of these like, formless shapes. And they hurt you. They do affect you if you don't do anything about them. But honestly, you could, for the most part, walk around them, leave them alone, and just keep going along your path. It is when you examine a little bit closer, especially after you've brutally hurt them, because in this game, you do have different mechanics in terms of guns, and then also steel pipe at one point, and I believe a board. But if you examine the creatures themselves, there's some subtext of these characters that are really just sort of referring to like how the main character, I think, views certain things. Specifically that I believe those characters may be wearing some sort of stiletto type shoes. At least that's what it looks like. And you start getting those little layers kind of peeled back, especially with the other enemies that you run into. And you're starting to see what his sort of like notions are, or how can I describe it? Like, you start peeling back sort of like the masculinity ness of it, like the sort of like misogyny kind of aspects of the character starting to come less with like some of the, some of the darker elements of the story, at least the creatures. There's definitely feminine qualities to them, which I find fascinating about this story specifically, including even say the biggest antagonist of this, which of course is Pyramid Head. And his depiction is always this sort of like muscly dude with this giant like metal box over his head. When you see what he's doing also to some of the creatures inside the world of Silent Hill. Now that's just the creatures design. We're also, like I was saying, the actual housing, the streets, the buildings, the hospitals, like the different places you go, there's definitely something interesting about how they are represented, especially in this world where there's both the world and then there's the other world, where at a certain point in the game, it just swifts over to sort of like the antechamber version of the same place, whether it's at the hospital or the apartments. The decay and the like shreddedness, like with the metal grates, and like it's all very mechanical and industrial, and it's definitely like, and it goes back to that Twin Peaks and like David Lynch thing of just sort of like this like happy-go-lucky town, but then down in the surface there's so this deep decaying like destruction of the American dream. And you could see that in the design, and you could definitely see that the people that made both, I would say, this game and then of course the original definitely are huge fans of as well, if not directly inspired by David Lynch, which everyone should be directly inspired by. But yeah, I there's just so much about just the subtleness of the world building, the creatures that you fight, the puzzles as well. There's some really great puzzles. And this is not a kind of game where, blah, 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 major twist here happens all the time. There is a pretty big twist towards the end, but you kind of see it coming at a certain point. There's actually one additional thing, and this is not a spoiler because it's never directly talked about. But there are bodies that you find throughout the game that very much wear what seemingly seems to be similar clothing to the main protagonist. Whether they are the main protagonist is never fully revealed, but they very much look like it, and that adds to the nature of the psychosis and the psychology of the game, as well as like the horrible depictions of these bodies. Like it's definitely additive to the experience, and not necessarily needed to like, I need to know this answer, but really just a fun reflection on what we could do with the medium of video games. It's such a fascinating game, and the more I think about it, the more I want to live in that world, which is weird because it's not a pleasant place. There's not a whole lot that you'd want to stick to, but there's still like this area when I think about it. The last thing I kind of want to really talk about is the music. The music of Silent Hill 2 is so classic. Like Angelo Badalamenti, who of course is the person who did the music for Twin Peaks, but it's got that like jazzy, quiet somberness with some rockin' tunes at certain point, which is kind of you feel out of place, but also not. Like there's some really good music that is on display in this game, including just some of the ambient stuff. Like the sound design overall in the game is creepy and will put you on edge, and yeah, absolutely terrifying. So I hope this was a suitable conversation for Silent Hill 2, the remake, because I really want people to really seek it out and check it out and go ahead and get outside your comfort zone if you're a horror game fan. Of course, if you're not a horror game fan, this is terrifying. I wouldn't recommend it. But if you are wanting to try and break that boundary, this is still a great game. So please, give this game some love. I do want to thank Matt and Jeff for this opportunity. This has been a blast. I just sort of sit here and shoot the stuff and talk about some of my favorite games. So thank you so much. Of course, I am That Mario Rivera. You can find me over there at That Mario Rivera on the X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I'm also primarily on Blue Sky at Mario Rivera. And then again, I want to iterate youtube.com/only special features for where you're going to find a lot of my work going forward. Of course, if you want to see my previous work, if you go to my Twitter, there should be a little link there to see all my media stuff. So please give that a look. And thank you so much, and happy gaming.
Hey, Nerf herders.
You sure you want to go with that?
Hey, everyone.
There we go. More inviting.
Have you ever had a movie that you really wanted to love, but something holds you back?
Or one that you did love in spite of a flaw?
Well, I'm Case Aiken.
And I'm Sam Alisea.
And on Another Pass, we sit down with cool guests to look at movies that we find fascinating.
But flawed.
And we try to imagine what could have been done when they were made to give them that little push.
We're not experts. We just believe in criticism.
Constructive criticism.
Sure.
So come take another pass at some movies with us.
And every now and then, we can celebrate movies that did it on their own, too.
You can find us at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Pass it on.
CPOV.
certainpov.com.